Spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David E.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yenji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser. This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Beachside Roofing.
Aloha, good morning. Thank you for joining us on this first Monday of the year. I'm Yenji Denise, joined by Ryan Kalei Suji. This is Spotlight Hawaii. And Ryan, today we are shining the spotlight on an ongoing issue that so many in our community are so concerned about, and that is the situation at Red Hill.
That's right. Joining us this morning once again is the chief, good morning, the chief engineer, Ernie Lau from the Board of Water Supply. Thank you once again, Ernie, for joining us. We know that you are extremely busy with a lot on your plate, and we appreciate you taking time to answer some of the questions this morning. You know, the last time that we spoke, you provided an overview of where we're at and how we got to this point with the situation on Red Hill. I'm wondering if we can start off with you providing us an update of where we're at right now and how things are looking overall in this progress.
As you know, that the Red Hill field facility was built in the 1940s, and right now today they still store probably over 180 million gallons of diesel and jet fuel, only 100 feet above our aquifer there in the Mauna Halawa area. The emergency order was issued in December by the Department of Health. The Navy has resisted it, and there was a contested case hearing which was completed. The hearings officer correctly ruled that the order should stand, and the Navy's taken exceptions. So we look forward to the Deputy Director of Health to make a ruling on the emergency order, and hopefully to let it stand.
Have you gotten any indication from the Department of Health as to which way they're leaning right now? Have they asked for any supplemental information, or what do you know about that decision-making process?
Right now, I don't believe we've received any requests from the Department of Health. It's really now in the hands, I think, of the Deputy Director of Health to make a ruling. The hearings officer made their proposed decision and order document and rightly found that the order should stand.
If you can update us on the ongoing conversations that are happening with the Navy and with the state officials, how regularly are you connecting with them, and what has been the overall involvement of the Navy? Because I know that the last time that we spoke, you had expressed some concerns based on prior conversations and engagement with the Navy in the past, and how oftentimes their words did not match their actions. How have things been since all of this has come to light?
I think the Navy right now is, dealing with the crisis at hand, which is the trying to restore safe drinking water back to their customers on the Navy's water system. And that really is kind of in their focus of attention. There is some focus on what's happening with the groundwater, and there's a groundwater working or groundwater focus group, or aquifer restoration focus group, and that we're participating in that discussion. But really, we're learning to see what will they be doing about defining where the contamination is in the aquifer itself. Was released with the November 20th event.
Let's talk a little bit more about that event and the containment that's going on and cleanup. I know that is the responsibility of the Navy and not the Board of Water Supply, but you've taken measures, and to refresh the memory of our audience, you've taken measures to make sure that doesn't come into our water system. Can you give us an update on the wells that have been shut down, the testing that you're doing, and what you know about what happened in November?
So the wells that are shut down, immediately we took action to shut down Halawa Shaft, one of our largest sources for the Honolulu water system, providing about 20% of the supply there. Then subsequently, we shut down 2 additional wells, our Halawa wells and our Aiea wells. And the reason we did that was we don't know what's happening underground and where the fuel contamination might be traveling. And we definitely do not want to pump contaminated water into our water system and serve it to our customers. So they remain shut down. We are testing weekly 5 closest wells around the Red Hill fuel facility, and all the test results have been negative for fuel contamination.
If you share, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, we do have customers calling with concerns, and something like this, raises the level of concern, and we do investigate every single call that we get with our customers. But the Board of Water Supply water is safe to drink.
If we can talk a little bit more about that testing and where that's being done, because there was some light that was brought to the attention of the general public. I mean, prior to this, we didn't really really think about how this testing was happening and where it was taking place. We know that some advanced testing had to be done on the mainland just because of the technology and access to equipment that was available for testing made available on the mainland as opposed to what we have here in Hawaii. If you can talk a little bit about the testing that's currently happening, is that a test that's happening here on island? And are there any testing that you are sending off island to the mainland to any labs for any further testing or more maybe intense testing, if you will?
For petroleum contaminants, all tests are being done on the mainland, on the West Coast in California. And we've been working with the same lab for the last almost 8, well, actually, in a week, it'll be 8 years since we've been doing this testing. And we've been doing the testing on the mainland lab simply because we don't have the resources and capability locally to do the test. And what we're looking for is actually taking it down to the lowest possible level of sensitivity. So it's in the parts per billion range. And we don't have that capability either at the Board of Water Supply or, to my knowledge, in the state of Hawaii right now.
Tell us a little bit more. When you were on before, you explained it as an analogy of drinking, a modified analogy, instead of drinking from the same glass, but really the aquifer being the sponge and us tapping into that sponge. You said that the migration of fuel to our side could take 6 months to a year. It was really not clear. Is there any update to that? Do you know first of all, how much fuel we're actually dealing with? And how much was able to be contained versus how much is down there and sort of slowly moving to our side?
In terms of the movement of the aquifer, we're still very concerned. We don't have any additional information about how that fuel is moving underground in the aquifer and flowing with the groundwater. And our greatest fears are that it can flow across the valley. The Navy did have a positive detection at their Aiea Halawa shaft, which they a couple hours later tried to explain away. We're still waiting for additional information on additional tests being taken at that Aiea Halawa shaft, which is on the same side as Halawa shaft for us and our Aiea and Halawa wells. So that's going to be very significant. But it's really difficult to determine where the contamination is because there's simply not enough monitor or test wells in the valley. So I assume that the Department of Health and the EPA with the Navy are going to look at installing more monitor wells to try to locate where fuel contamination might be and how it's moving underground.
I apologize for the overall ignorance with this subject. I mean, we were learning so much about just the difference with aquifers and wells through this whole process. And I'm wondering if there's any other contributing factors that may expedite that contamination. Say, with the past week, with the amount of rain that we've received, the amount of water that's now flowing through these aquifers and going into the wells and such, is there any other indicators or any other things that may impact the overall expediting of this contamination overall?
These type of rain events that we've had just over the weekend, and boy, did it rain. It was like, I kind of describe it as like pounding rain on my windshield of my car at times. This type of rain really doesn't affect the underground aquifers right now, but it's really many years from now where the water eventually seeps in through the lava rock from the watershed areas, Mauka, and gets into these underground aquifers that we use. Most of this water actually probably flowed into the ocean in our rivers, and we saw that happen, like with the hikers in Moanaloa Valley being stuck there because the rivers got swollen up and there was flash flooding there. But it takes maybe 25 years for the water to actually impact the aquifer. So I don't think anybody needs to worry about what's happening underground with the fuel contamination and with this recent storm that we had. So not to worry about that.
Let's talk a little bit about the status of the tanks themselves. If the hearing goes the way that I know you are hoping, and or that the Department of Health rules that these will be decommissioned, what have you heard about how long that could take? What will happen in the meantime? And there had been concerns that if you drained the tanks, that could lead to further contamination because the sources at the time that those discussions were being held hadn't fully been identified. What have you heard about that, about how long it could take if the Department of Health does in fact side with what you're calling for?
The Department of Health in their emergency order does give the Navy time to identify if there are any risk of emptying out the tanks, if there are any improvements that need to be made to the facility to allow for the safe defueling of the Red Hill fuel facility. And I can say, Yunji and Ryan, that I've been in the Red Hill facility. I saw the section near a pipeline that's connecting tank number 20, which had the JP5 leak back on May 6th of last year. And there's a 5-foot section of pipe that's not installed. There's a gap for keeping that tank from allowing fuel from that tank to be flowed into the pipelines. So definitely that would have to be repaired. And I think there was another leak by tank 18 also. When people may say that they have to be careful not to create more problems by defueling the facility. To me, I kind of wonder is the next logical question is it just completely unsafe to use the facility if it's going to be dangerous to empty the tanks out? Because isn't this purpose of this facility to store fuel? So ships would come up in Pearl Harbor, they would pump the fuel up to these tanks, they would allow the fuel to flow back by gravity into Pearl Harbor. But if there's a problem right now, then why are they still using this facility? That's my question to the Navy. So I hope I answered your question. I'm kind of nervous today.
No, you're doing great. When we're talking a bit more about just the overall dangers and the risk that these tankers pose to the overall aquifers, you mentioned some of those things that you noticed during your visit. Has there been any other indication of other types of issues in other tankers possibly down the line, or anything else that that has been flagged? Because if these are just two items that you saw and that you made notice of, I'm wondering just overall how the rest of those tankers are holding up, and over time, as you mentioned, what the longevity is of them being able to keep this operational, and if there's any other damage that has been seen or been flagged.
Our position is that as long as they continue to use this facility, it will pose a risk to the environment, to our groundwater aquifer. And the Navy's own vulnerability report, they assess the risk and vulnerability of the facility. Their own report identifies the likelihood of leaks occurring, increasing over time, anywhere from 1,000 to 30,000 gallons, 27% of the time each year. And ongoing leaks of maybe 5,800 gallons that's not even being detected from this facility. So our position is really the Navy cannot really operate safely this facility and not ensure that there won't be any leaks to the environment, any contamination that could get into the groundwater. So the facility really should be shut down and the fuel moved elsewhere to be not stored directly over our drinking water aquifer. I just add one more thing. And I've seen what happened last year and the year before. It seemed like it was almost every month something was happening with Red Hill. So my fear is if there's a delay in defueling the facility, that before in these discussions over the next 6 months or a year, there's a likelihood that something else will happen. And I really want to try to avoid that from happening anymore. This facility needs to be emptied out as soon as possible. to remove the risk to our resources.
Well, let's talk about the resources that have already been impacted. We know that I believe you said 3 wells on the Honolulu side have been shut down. How has that impacted the water needs of our community? When you were on before, we talked about having to possibly restrict water use if these have to be shut down indefinitely. Can you give us a little bit of an update on how long you anticipate having to keep these facilities out of commission and what that could mean long term?
Right now, if and I've called this my worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that the Navy continues the fight and to resist emptying out the fuel from this Red Hill facility, including the tanks and the pipelines. Then I think we have no choice than to look at the long-term shutdown of our 3 wells to avoid any chance of fuel contaminated water getting into our water system. And that means we have to go out and develop replacement wells elsewhere. And that will be a process that will take years. So we're going to be in this stress condition in our Honolulu water system from Halawa all the way out to Hawaii Kai, probably for years, unless the Navy takes quick action here. We will be in this stress condition where in the wintertime we'll be okay. Like right now it's raining, water demand is low. People are not using a lot of water. Of course, they aren't watering their yards, and they shouldn't be. But it's in the summer periods that we see a lot of stress in our water system. Demand goes up because people need more water to irrigate, to do other activities. When it's dry, their yards need to get irrigated, and they use more water. So it's during the summer months that we're going to be stressed the worst. And in those months, we'll be probably going out for requests for voluntary conservation from our community. And I would hope that we can, with the community's support and cooperation, we'll be able to get through the summers. But on top of that, if you layer a main break someplace in this water system, and we tend to have almost a main break a day, that'll create even more stress on the water system. So, I just apologize to our customers. This situation at Red Hill has put us in a very desperate, dire situation right now. And there may be times when you may have problems with low pressure or not have water for a period of time. Just know that the Board of Water Supply and the team that's here is committed to get the water system functioning again and to get water back to your homes. But there may be times that, especially in the summer months, that we're going to actually have areas of the system suffer from those problems. And it's really not our intent. The Halawa Shaft is a main source for the Honolulu water system. And we are going to sorely miss not having that well to be able to pump it when we need, especially during the hot summer months.
And what would that price tag look like in order to go out and find another well? I mean, you said it could take years to develop and find another source, as well as and then being able to tap that. But what would that overall cost, and who would ultimately be responsible for having to pay for finding this additional source to replace what was this very important aquifer and well?
Yeah, we don't have a definitive number on the cost yet. In terms of the process, so what we're looking at is sites that we can drill what we call exploratory wells. So we'll drill a well at a location where we think we can get water out of the ground, out of the aquifer, a good quality and of adequate quantity. We'll do a pumping test, and if that test turns out promising, then we'll proceed to design and construct the production facility, a production well facility. So I don't have a cost right now of what it will take to replace the capacity we've lost from the 3 wells that are currently shut down. But we're developing that. First step is going to be finding the locations where we can actually drill wells and put it into our water system.
You laid out the worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario? Let's say that the Navy is forced to actually comply and that they do. Will you, given that there could be this migration underground, whether they comply or not, of the existing contamination, will you be able to open those wells regardless?
I am not sure, Yunji and Ryan. I think more effort needs to be done by the Navy with the direction of the regulators, the EPA and the Department of Health, to identify the nature and extent of the underground contamination of the aquifer, and how the plumes of contaminants might be moving in what direction, and how that could be affected by when we turn on our pumps at Halava Shaft or IL or a Halava well. That needs to be determined. So there's a whole bunch of investigative effort that needs to be undertaken by the Navy. Right now, I know they're very focused on restoring the safety of their water in their water system, but they need to get on the investigation on the nature and extent of the contamination and where it's moving and how it will be impacted when we start pumping again. Like you say, we suck from the same glass of water or with the sponge in it, which is the lava rock. If we keep on pumping and they're not pumping, then we can draw that fuel, and that's our fear, across to our wells. We'll see, I think, in the next few months whether or not the Navy will be successful in cleaning up their own drinking water source at Red Hill Shaft. I wish them the best on that, but the level of contamination, is extremely high in that source. So this is a very dynamic situation right now.
I wonder if you can speak a little bit about the collaboration that is happening with all the different entities and elected officials that are involved. Of course, when this first broke, we saw statements being made by almost every elected official. We know that the congressional delegation has been involved, and we've heard from Ed Case here on this program talking about the things and steps that he's doing. We know that the governor has also spoken on and been involved in this process with the Department of Health. There has been hearings that have been planned by the Hawaii State Legislature. The City Council is passing resolutions. There just seems to be a lot of voices that are now getting involved. Talk about the collaboration overall, and ultimately who is responsible for this project moving forward when there's so many different layers of government that have taken a stand and an interest in trying to resolve this matter.
Ryan, I think you answered the question, actually, because there are so many layers and different jurisdictions here, from the city to the state to the federal level, that it will take everybody being involved and being on the same plate, have the same vision or objective in mind, and to continue to work at it over time. Over the past 8 years, at times we felt like we were the lone voice out there, going in front of the elected officials at the state legislature, going in front of the city council. I do want to say that the city council has been one of the most supportive over the years, passing multiple resolutions. One thing to keep in mind here, folks, is that, yes, after Thanksgiving, all this broke loose and we had this crisis situation. But keep in mind that this crisis will not end quickly. So it's going to be very important for all the elected officials and the community and the Board of Water Supply and the regulators, and different groups to stay on top of this issue over time. Let us not be weary and let this kind of fade out of our attention, out of our mind. Because this is so important to our community. We need to stay on this, and it will require everybody's effort to keep at this to protect our water resources. We're running a marathon here, and it's not the 100-meter dash here. So it's going to be important. I want to encourage everybody to stay on top of this issue, stay involved, and talk to those that can make a difference in decisions and directions.
There are a number of people in the comments asking if this has risen to the attention of the White House, given the critical nature of this facility from a military standpoint, and then, of course, from our own island standpoint for the citizens of Oahu. What have you heard in terms of getting the attention of President Biden, or how far up is this going in terms of, having some kind of interest on that level?
We've written to the president and still awaiting a response from him. Hopefully he'll get back to us soon. I understand, and I've read the news stories, that the Secretary of the Navy did send a letter to the community. Haven't seen the complete letter. but it seems to have the attention, at least within the Department of Defense. But the attention really, I think, needs to go even higher. It needs to be raised in Congress because this is a federal facility. This is a federal entity. The solutions require congressional action and require the support of the president. So I hope that we will be able to achieve that in the future. I'm not completely hopeful, but I'm going to stay on this. And please, folks in the community, don't give up. Don't give up here. We're fighting for the future of our children, for their water resources. So let's protect this water resource, protect this VAI.
One of the things that we know that you have to take care of, and you mentioned it, is the water main breaks that happen. There is just a lot of just the overall maintenance and the overall day-to-day operations that the Board of Water Supply has to undertake. How much has this put a strain on your overall department and the different divisions that fall under your jurisdiction? And how do you manage all of this with this crisis that has come up recently?
Right now, I think the strain has been on certain ones over the team here at the Board of Water Supply that are working on the Red Hill matter, and it's been a lot. I'll just say that. But I'm very fortunate that I'm really blessed with a great team of men and women here at the Board of Water Supply, because Ernie Lau by himself, he can't do much. But it takes a team of our over 550 employees working here at the Board of Water Supply to continue to be able to provide this vital service to our community. It is a strain. Folks, keep in mind that we're doing the best we can, and we're committed to restoring water service and keeping the water safe for our community. I just leave it at that. I have a great team, and I really appreciate them.
You said just a moment ago that you're asking for the public to really continue to support this effort and that this is a marathon. What is the best way that people can be involved in this issue and best support the Board of Water Supply? I think so many people feel like obviously they have a stake in this fight, but they really don't know where to channel that energy. What are you asking people to do?
Well, I think there are decisions that are going to be made, by the governor, by the Department of Health on the emergency order. Immediately support the governor and the director of health in implementing and requiring the Navy to comply with that emergency order. I think that's an important point. I anticipate that the Navy will resist. I pray that they don't. But having worked on this for 8 years, I know that they'll probably continue to fight us. So we need to continue to put the pressure on them and support the state government to require the order to be complied with, and not to give up, not to back off. I think there are opportunities to communicate with our congressional delegation also, because Congress is going to be important to the solution here. To continue to communicate with your congressperson and let them know where you stand and how you can support them in getting the Navy to defuel the facility and to relocate the fuel from being over the aquifer.
All right. Unfortunately, our time is done, but we do want to thank you for coming on and providing us an update of everything that's happening at, of course, Red Hill, and the current steps that are being taken by the Board of Water Supply to protect the water source and all the testing mechanisms that are being put into place as well. So thank you so much, Ernie Lau, for starting your week off with us, and we really appreciate you giving us this update this morning.
Thank you, Yunji and Ryan. Aloha.
Aloha. Well, a very interesting update there from Ernie Lau, the Chief Engineer of the Board of Water Supply. If you missed anything, of course, when this broadcast is complete, you can watch from the beginning, also catch the podcast or the rebroadcast on Channel 50. I thought it was really interesting, Ryan. One thing that he said in there is that even if things go swimmingly, which it doesn't sound like he is necessarily anticipating, he is anticipating a continued fight with the Navy. But even if the Navy were to comply tomorrow, the wells that have been shut down on the Honolulu side, they don't know if and when they can open them. And that could mean restrictions in the summer, no matter what.
Yeah, really, and not just something that will be for a few months. This could be an ongoing process. As he said, this would take years to not only find that new source, but also to tap it and make sure that all of that is set up and integrated into the system. Really, just exemplifying the importance of this aquifer in Halava and the impact and the significant impact it has to the overall supply here in the metropolitan area of Honolulu. You also heard from him encouraging people to stay up to date with what's happening and to support those actions of the elected officials who have taken a stand in this matter. Many have compared Ernie Lau in his battle to David and Goliath going up against the military, knowing that there is obviously a strong presence by the military, and oftentimes there is some pushback in what he is saying here at the Board of Water Supply and what the military is acting on. But him encouraging the public to be involved in the process and to track this along, and really putting more pressure on the Navy to remove these oil tankers.
Right. And the Navy, of course, on their side is working to clean up the contamination that they're aware of at this point. That is still very much in process and taking a lot of time. One thing that Ernie Lau did highlight and call for was for the Navy to do more detection in terms of where the plumes of contamination are within the aquifer. The focus right now is on cleaning up so that that water system can be put back online for the over 90,000 people who are impacted by that being shut down. But that said, we really need to figure out where this contamination is and figure out how to track it. It's obviously a system that's completely underground, and he's calling on the Navy to try to lead some of that effort. Good news, though, he did say that all of the testing that they've been doing on the Honolulu side has come up negative. There is no contamination of any petroleum products in our water right now, and he did assure the public that the water on the Honolulu side continues to be safe.
And he also said that it will take all members of government to really be involved in this process. As we've heard, members of our congressional delegation, of course, the state as well as the city and county have all gotten involved in this issue. And Ernie Lau really saying it's going to take everybody from all branches of government to get on the same page to ensure that they are on the same page and they are a united front moving forward to ensure that some kind of action can be taken and cooperation hopefully will happen with the military. Two leaders that no doubt will be involved in those conversations moving forward will be the Senate President and House Speaker. They will be on this program on Wednesday.
That's right. Scott Saiki and Ron Kochi will be joining us. Of course, the legislative session begins in a couple of weeks. There have been talks about the fight between that body and the executive branch, that the legislature perhaps will be introducing some bills to limit the governor's purview for emergency powers. That, of course, would not affect Governor David Ige, but it could affect the next governor who will take the reins there. We've heard a lot of pushback from the current administration and others saying that the executive branch needs to be nimble and that those emergency powers need to be broad. But there are some who feels that this was excessive. And so that could include some of the lawmakers that we'll be speaking to on Wednesday. We'll, of course, ask them about that. Red Hill, continued, COVID case outbreaks. We continue to see pretty high counts in our community. And so there's a lot to talk about. We hope you join us right back here, 10:30 on Wednesday with Ron Kochi and Scott Saiki.
We'll see you then. Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Beachside Roofing.